Alcohol ink on vellum. The paper always curls, and it's a bit of a mystery on what adhesive to use. I am going to share different alcohol ink techniques and give you several tips that will help you gain the confidence you need to try it for yourself. I am also going to let you in on my secret to adhering vellum. This video is a collaboration with my friend Jerry. She will be sharing a technique I didn't even think you could do with alcohol inks, and I will link her video at the end of this one. Let's get into it. I found that the brand and thickness of the vellum is not what mattered most when using alcohol inks on it. It was actually how much ink I was putting on top of the vellum. I will work on a larger piece than I actually need, and I will add the alcohol ink only to the center, making sure I don't add too much. The first technique I will be showing you is alcohol pearls on vellum. The most important thing to remember when working with the pearls, no matter the surface, is you have to use blending solution. The pearls will not move around with just isopropyl alcohol. You also need to make sure you shake up the bottle to get the mica moving around. I added some blending solution to the center of my vellum, and I will add drops of the alcohol pearls on top of the blending solution. I'm going to use my Conair hair dryer on low to move around the ink. I slightly tilt the dryer and quickly move it around until the ink is dry. I like to add some splatters with isopropyl alcohol, and this helps add interest and texture to the background. I also love to add gold splatters. I use a Reinker gold mixative for this. It works perfect. And stick with me because I'm going to share how I turn this background into a simple card later on. Now let's try some alcohol lift ink. I really didn't know if this was going to work on the vellum, and I was hoping it would because I knew the results would be amazing. I started by creating my background and making sure to add the ink to the center of the vellum. If the ink gets too close to the edges, it will curl up. After the ink is dry, I will place a stencil on top, and then I take the alcohol lift ink refill and add some to the domed blending brush. I take the tool and pounce it through the stencil until I get the ink all over. Then take a paper towel and soak up some of that lift ink. It's important to take your time getting the lift ink off, making sure to use different parts of the paper towel and to pounce the paper towel on, not to rub it on top of the alcohol lift ink. Once most of the lift ink is up, you can then take the paper towel and rub off any remaining ink. I was so excited to see that this worked on vellum. I am now going to take a stamp and use a lift ink with it. You're just going to ink up the stamp like you would with any other ink. I'm not too particular about getting a perfect stamped image, so I'm not going to be using a stamp positioner. I press the stamp firmly onto the vellum, and then I'm going to use a paper towel to get the ink up. I love the subtle floral image on this background. Because I love adding texture and different layers, I'm going to take the same colors I used to create the background and add some splatters. The colors I used are from Reinker, and the first color is Moss and the second color is Monsoon, and you can find a full supply list in the description box below. I don't know about you, but all of this texture makes my heart happy. One simple way to add texture is using plastic wrap. I have done this technique with watercolors, but I wanted to see what it would look like with alcohol inks. I am still working on vellum, so I add some blending solution and alcohol ink to the center of the paper. I use my Conair tool to move the ink around, but I do not want it to dry completely. So when I like the look of the ink, I will crumple up the plastic wrap and set it right on top. I set the paper aside to dry for about 30 minutes, and I was a bit impatient, so the ink was not fully dry, but I still love the texture that I got. I dried the ink in place, and I'm going to add some splatters like I did on the other backgrounds. But this time I am going to add some more texture by taking the same plastic wrap, crumpling it up even more, and I spritz the plastic wrap with some isopropyl alcohol and smush the plastic wrap onto the paper. This technique is so easy to do, and it adds so much interest to the background. I couldn't help but add some gold splatters to this background as well. Now that I shared 3 different alcohol ink techniques on vellum, it's time to share my secret to adhering vellum to a card base. Liquid adhesive doesn't work well with vellum, so I like to use double-sided adhesive sheets from scrapbook.com. I cut the adhesive sheet slightly smaller than my background panel, which measures 4 by 5 1/4. I take the backing off from one side of the adhesive sheet, line it up the best I can on my background, and then I am going to peel off the other side of the backing. I am going to line up the vellum the best I can on my card base. I want to keep the background as visible as possible, so I cut out a leaf from my Cricut machine, and I didn't want to do any stamping, so I added a sticker for a quick sentiment. Alcohol inks are so versatile. I showed you 3 different techniques you could do with them, but my friend Jerry is going to show you a technique that blew my mind. Check it out in this video right here.